Hello, and welcome to the Specialty Matcha Podcast. My name is Ryan. This is my co-host Zongjun,
Hello, hello.
and we're the co-founders of Sanko Matcha Products.
Yeah, we launched this podcast to discuss our learning journey in matcha, share startup stories, and interview experts. And today we are happy to have Jacque from Jacque and Matcha. Welcome, Jacque.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for
Welcome.
having me. Thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming on. We've been exchanging on Instagram for quite a while, so happy
Yeah.
you could finally get to see you face to face.
Yes, that's true. And hopefully some way, somehow in the future, we all get to share a bowl of tea together
I
in
hope so.
person.
We'd love
I
to.
think both Sam and I, when our mill prototype is to the
Yes,
point where we're very happy, I think Manila and the Philippines will definitely be on the road show of where we take it.
definitely. We would love to have that here.
Yeah, we think just Southeast Asia in general, the matcha scene is just exploding. And it's kind of exploding in a way that we're not seeing a lot of other places, and
Yeah,
especially in the Philippines, Thailand, Singapore. It's really cool to see like matcha gain a foothold in those markets.
spreading like crazy. Like this year alone, I feel like so many cafes have popped up, so many matcha content creators have signed up on Instagram. So it's crazy the growth from the past 2 years alone. It's crazy.
That's
And you
awesome.
can really feel it too, even remotely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been 2 years since we've been back to the Philippines.
Mhm.
It's we can't wait to see the scene in person too.
time to go
We
back.
would love to have you guys soon.
That's awesome.
So, could you tell everyone a little bit about your brand, Jacque and Matcha, and a little bit about your background as well?
Sure. So actually, when I signed on Instagram using the Jacque and Matcha account, that was just a way for me to post all my matcha content. Because I've been drinking a lot of matcha and posting at my personal account. And then I realized maybe the people who follow me there might not be super interested with so much matcha content. So I decided to put up a different one, right? And then yeah, I think I started that account 2022. So I was deep into matcha for like a year already. And then it just started to grow from there. All the pop-ups that I've been doing lately, that was all by accident.
Oh,
So
okay.
the intention was just for it to be a personal brand because I'm actually working on a different brand for my matcha and Japanese teas in general. So that brand is underway and hopefully I get to launch it in 2025. But for now, I'm going with my personal account first as I do my pop-ups, introduce myself in the community and the market. So there, my background would be, huh, I describe myself as a matcha enthusiast, first and foremost. I really just enjoy drinking it in usucha, in lattes, in desserts. And eventually, because of my love for matcha and all my travels in Japan, I discovered Chado or Chano Yu. So for a year
Hmm.
now, I've been practicing with the Urasenke Tangkokai in Manila. So there's a
Very
Manila
nice.
Cool.
Association. So I've been practicing with them for over a year, and I really fell in love with the idea of with the idea behind Chado, not just like serving tea, but all the parts about just being grateful for all the encounters that you're having. That's one of the things that I really love about it. And then now I would consider myself someone who wants to be in the F&B industry for real. So I started, I guess, as like a home brewer. And then now I really want to be able to share and spread more about matcha through like a brand for there.
Awesome. That's awesome. How long is your average cafe? Because pop up, like when I see you on Instagram, it seems like you're like stationed there for quite a while. It's
Ooh,
almost
I'm
like you're
only
like
there.
guest chefing,
Yeah.
but for like a matcha barista.
Yeah, usually just 2 days. So it's always a weekend because that's where most of the people come in. So they invite me over the weekend. Most of them are 2 days, but some invite me for a day.
Okay.
So yeah, it just feels long, I guess, because I keep posting about it prior to the actual pop-up. And then after the pop-up, I have like post event like roundups and stuff. So it feels longer.
I see.
So a lot of like other matcha brands, and even like when sometimes Zongjun and I are talking, we're like, oh, we'd love to do pop-ups.
Yeah.
We haven't done one yet, but like, what's good to know? Like, do you approach the coffee shops, or do the coffee shops approach you? How do you like plug into their operations? How does that kind of unfold?
It's
Yeah.
really great because this all started through connections that we have with our other like businesses in a sense. So like I mentioned, my husband and his siblings, they own a cafe. And then my job, my day job, is that I'm a producer and I used to work in a magazine. So I've had a lot of connections also. And then it all started when cafes would invite me. So they just know me as the person who just loves drinking matcha. And then one of my friends who owns a bakery, he just said, "You want to do like a pop up this weekend because we don't serve matcha, we only have coffee. So it would be nice for you to serve matcha because a lot of people are looking for it." And then it started from there. That was in August. That was in August. We had 2 day pop up. I wasn't prepared at all. I ran out of matcha. We had problems with like cups and stickers and all of those things. And then it just snowballed from there. Different cafes have invited me from not just Manila, actually. A lot of the people who invited me are outside Manila. So I did a few ones in the north and then at least one in the south.
Very cool.
So yeah, so for now, like at first I thought I was like, okay, I'm only gonna do this for a month. Not a month, like I'm only gonna do this once a month. So it adds to that mystery so that people don't like always see me everywhere. But that kind of changed because of the people who invite me, which I'm grateful for. Now I would do pop-ups every weekend. So
Wow.
that, yeah,
Wow.
from like once a month to every weekend. Since August, it became like the gaps between the pop-ups became shorter and shorter. And even in December, a lot of people were asking for my schedule, but I really couldn't commit anymore because of like personal stuff and also will be traveling. So yeah,
Do cafe shops like tend to invite you when they do not have a matcha program to begin with, or like do you see a mix of both?
there's definitely a mix of both. So the first cafe that invited me, they didn't have matcha at all. The second cafe that invited me, they just noticed they already serve their own matcha, and they noticed that there's a growth in the number of people who would order their drinks. So they wanted to invite me just to see if people would really like interact with it, I guess. And also based on because I have a big like a really long menu, so that also allows the cafes who invite me to see and test out their markets, like what are their preferences, not just with matcha, but with like the flavors. And it's really surprising because each and every one will have different favorites. Like let's say
Interesting.
in one place they really like ordering the lavender matcha, and then the another spot would lean more towards Filipino flavors. So we would do like coconut pandan matcha latte. So
Ooh,
it
Oh,
that
that
changes
sounds
sounds
great.
per
good.
location. Yeah, so it really changes per location. So I really feel like it helps them figure out what their market likes. So, and also there are cafes who invited me and they serve solely matcha. So I'm like
Oh,
really confused
cool.
why they would have me over. But they said, yeah, they just wanted to invite me to like, I guess to interact more with the community. And also most of the cafes here serve matcha from a specific region like Uji, just because it's really popular and commercialized, right? So I think whenever a cafe invites me, I always say that, oh, perfect. It's because I serve matcha from a different region. So even if you currently have your own matcha menu, what I have will be different. So it's also gonna help with your market to figure out their taste preference if they like a certain region more than the other.
Okay.
So
You,
yeah.
you specialize on yame, right? I think I see a lot of Hoshino
Yeah, because
tea on
I
your feed.
really, really love it. So the first time I tried Hoshino, I think I was in New York. So I was
Nice.
going around trying out different like cafes, and then we walked into Setsugeka, and
Yeah.
then they had this menu which talked about Yame matcha specifically and talked about the region in depth. So I was super, super interested. So they let me try. We ordered a bunch of things and tried it out. And I'm like, I really enjoyed this. And then after Setsugeka, I tried Kettle, who also served
Nice.
at that time Yame Matcha specifically for their drinks and their, I think it was, yeah, not in their Brooklyn location, the other one that's just a window.
Yeah,
So
the
they were
Bowery.
serving, yeah. So they were just serving Yame Matcha there. And I'm like, hey, I think I really like the flavor notes on this one. And then since then, I got really hooked. Yeah,
I love it too. That
yeah.
roasty, toasty, refreshing. I don't know.
And I feel like that kind of flavor profile really matches the Filipino taste profile. They're not used to it yet because they're familiar with Uji or let's say at most Shizuoka. But I feel like when it comes to like if you're an introductor, like if you're a beginner and you want to try something, I feel like Yame is like a good entry point for a lot of Filipinos. So that's what I'm trying to also share when I do my pop-ups that there are different flavors of matcha depending on the region, depending on how it's processed or something. So it really helps also with education for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you approach that education? I know you do a lot of workshops as well. Like, how do you
Ooh.
decide what makes the cut? Like, what do you include when you're like someone doesn't know about matcha? In like, what do you include in your explanation, or what do you specifically don't include? Like, how do you approach a lot of those conversations?
Okay. So actually, I've only done a proper workshop once and a
Okay.
crash course once. So like in total, I've only done it twice. But a lot of people are already asking if I can do it for them and their cafes. So I finally decided on doing it just last Saturday. So it took me a while to prepare for it. And then at first, I was really having a hard time narrowing down the topics that I wanted to talk about because I could talk about so many things and it would take hours and hours. But I
Yeah.
had to like make sure that first they won't get information overload and
Mm.
also just to keep it slightly concise so that they can also get on their own journey and like discover stuff for themselves. So what I did was I definitely used my Orasenke training as like a foundation.
Mm.
Because I feel like not a lot of Filipinos practice Orasenke. In fact, like in the association, we're only like three Filipinos there. So I use that as my foundation. I talk about the history a lot so that I can connect it to a tea ceremony, like how matcha is traditionally consumed. And then after that, I focus a lot on how matcha is processed. Because I feel like here in the Philippines, they're not really aware yet of like how much effort really goes into like a tin of matcha. So I talk about how it's shaded, how it can be machine picked or like hand picked, and that even in the milling process, that there's a stone mill and there's a ball mill. All of these, like I've learned also very recently. So I focus on all of those things and kind of like let them know that based on the different processes or the things that a matcha or tencha goes through, the flavors change, the quality changes also. Because, well, yeah, I feel like the biggest gap when it comes to education here in the Philippines is the use of like ceremonial grade, that term as a marketing term. Everybody would either come up to cafes and be like, "Are you serving ceremonial matcha?" Or like, cafes would then end up using that term just to make sure that their customers know that they're serving high quality matcha, but that's not always the case because there's so much misinformation from the suppliers alone. So when it comes to my workshops, I try to clear all of those things out as much as I can because when I was starting out, I was also misled somehow. And then
Yeah.
everything else I learned when we would visit Japan, when we would talk to some of the farmers and suppliers. So that's when I learned the hard way, in a sense, like they would say that doesn't exist here or that's not
Yeah.
appropriate. So I make sure that I share everything that I was looking for when I was starting out.
Mm.
Yeah, so I
Makes
start
sense.
there and then like kind of like expound on certain things when I see that they're curious about something. So I always encourage them to ask questions, especially if I feel like they have they want to know something that I didn't include in the workshop. So I always tell them, like, just keep asking questions. If it doesn't pop up now, like, you can email me. I can definitely respond to you. So yeah, so that's how I try to put together my workshop outline.
Makes sense.
So Jack, when you host a workshop or a class, what are some of the aha moment for the audience to find like super interested or like, get them super inspired to want to learn more about matcha or drink more matcha?
I think the processes that kind of like makes them realize how much effort goes into their bowl of matcha. So they kind of like put more value to it. They now want to learn more about it in a sense that, oh, so what kinds of cultivars are in my matcha? How was it processed? Was it hand picked? Was it machine picked? Is it first flush, second flush? So they now, the wheels kind of turn on in their heads by having the right questions to ask. So I feel like that's their aha moment, that it's not as simple as just ground green tea. That
Some powder,
there goes,
something out
yeah, there's so many things that go behind it for it to be produced like that. So they
there.
also understand why certain things can also be expensive while others can be like cheaper. So they now
Mm.
know the reasons why the prices also fluctuates. So yeah, I feel like it's really figuring out all the effort that goes behind the
Right,
production
right.
of matcha.
It's not just ceremonial matcha, right? It's like what
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
cultivar, what year does it harvest, or what's the flush, and what's
Yeah.
the making method.
It's really great because, like, even now, I would share with them that a lot of the new brands that are, let's say, Oika, MTCH, they're very transparent when it comes to their labeling.
Mm.
And they kind of label their matcha just like specialty coffee. And then I
Yeah.
tell them that most of the newer brands actually label their matchas a little more like transparent. But like big brands from Japan, they're a little more secretive about it, I guess. They don't really share that information so easily. Because even when I order my matcha, so I order a bunch from Hoshino Sishen, I order from Yamamasa Koyamaen, I order from another farmer. It's a family-owned company, Kogacha in Yame. Out of everyone, I think it was just Kogacha who was willing to kind of share more details about their tea.
Mm.
So they'll tell me more about it, like how long it's been shaded, what are the cultivars present in it. But when I ask the other companies, they're a little more hesitant to share. They'll say that it's a secret, it's like a trade secret that they can't share. So, yeah,
We've gotten that
that's the
answer a
hard
lot
part.
too. Yeah, that's the hard part.
Like, I feel like I have to gain their trust first, and I feel like I'm only scratching the surface. But yeah.
Same.
So for the near future, I guess, in Philippines, Jack, how do you see the development of specialty matcha? Do you see it as, kind of like a movement that's happening in some other countries as well? Like people are focusing on, single origin, single cultivar, they're drinking more usucha? Or do you see like the consumers are also generally more interested in like matcha mixed drinks? And do you see that, being maybe a mix, or do you see a geographic difference? For example, like maybe people in Manila is more interested in,
Mhm.
single cultivar or somewhere else.
Actually, I feel like right now the Filipino market, they're more interested in mixed drinks, at least the general public. But there's already like a growing community of like home brewers who are more detailed when it comes to the matcha that they're drinking. So they are now exploring single origins, although they still drink it with milk still, or they turn it into desserts. But I always think of it as how specialty coffee grew here as well. Like people really started with all the sweet stuff first. And then
Mm.
eventually they transitioned to just drinking the matcha or the black coffee on its own. And then eventually they got really obsessed with pour overs, which to me feels like usucha and koicha also.
They're the
Because that
pour
you
overs.
it's more volatile, the flavors is more subtle. So I really feel like the Philippine market is heading there. Because matcha's been available here for a long time, but it's always the sweet stuff. So we've always had
Mm.
like soft serve, we've always had like matcha lattes. But It was only that for the longest time. So only in the
Mm,
past few years have I seen like a lot of experimental drinks using matcha. And I'm really hopeful that eventually people are going to be more open to drinking it on its own. Because right now, there's only one place in Makati that kind of serves usucha and not even koicha yet, just usucha. So they
Mm.
would have like a tea degustation, and it's like they'll serve matcha as a latte, they'll serve matcha as an ice cream, and then eventually they'll have you transition to like drinking matcha as an usucha. So there's only one place who does that. All of the cafes or all of the brands that have been coming up right now, they're focused on mixing it with lattes because I think that's how the social media presence is like where it's at also. Like everyone likes mixing it with drinks because it looks cute, it looks pretty, they do the layers. So I feel like we're there now, but there's so much more room for improvement, or like people are hungry to also like explore matcha. So
that's wonderful.
actually, with the brand that I'm putting up, that's what I wanted to focus on. Because right now, with all the pop ups that I'm doing, it is very fast paced. It's still very cutesy. It's still very like fun mixed drinks, right? But once in a while, I serve usucha in certain places have a warm welcome to it in a sense that a lot of people order. So the biggest one, I think I've had like 12 orders of Osucha, and that was the biggest for me because people were so curious. And I'm like, nobody orders Osucha. So I'm super happy when like people order at least once. But there's a place that ordered like 12. 12 people were open to try it. So I feel like, okay, as long as it's like presented in a way that won't intimidate them, I feel like they're open to try it. So yeah, like I'm really excited for the matcha market here. Like yeah,
That's
going
great.
back to the brand that I'm putting up is that I wanted it to be a mix of traditional and contemporary. Just because I still wanted rooted in the Rosenke practice that you appreciate every single detail, you kind of take in the moment, you enjoy the silence. So I wanted to highlight that, but also not like intimidate other people who have never gone through like a tea ceremony practice before, or at least like a tea ceremony in general. So that's what I want to do. I actually really look up to Jev of MTCH because I'm like, yes, that's like a perfect balance. Like when you enter his shop, which I've never been to yet, everything that I'm hearing is that no matter what your level is when it comes to your matcha exposure, you'll have enjoy something there. And I think that's really great because it's like not just helping people be educated, but they won't feel alienated or they won't feel like out of place. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I really hope
it's a
that
really well designed, well rehearsed experience. Ryan
yes,
and I went there several
yes.
times. You can really capture anyone from anywhere in their consumer journey in matcha. So
Yeah,
that
that's what I
was
really like.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
let's say a group of friends enter and like what if you're the only one who likes drinking koicha? I mean, what are the other
Mm,
people gonna drink, right? But when you enter a place like MTCH, like they can find something, even if it's let's say a dessert. So it's great. It's very accessible. It's not intimidating. So that's something that I wanna see here in the Philippines. And yeah, hopefully
I'm
in the next year or two, there'll be more cafes here that focus on matcha.
Yeah. And something I think MTCH does really well is they care a lot about the quality of both ends. Because a place that specializes in specialty mixed drinks, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like the usicha there is kind of not good sometimes in a lot of cafes. And then, so like as you work your way up the ladder, you try the usicha, it's like, well, I don't like this. Well, probably not using very good matcha, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or the other way, like a special or like a really specialty place, it's really more traditional, more everything, right? Like might water down the mixed drinks. So it's that
Yeah.
spectrum is really rare. I've noticed.
That's what I try to do with my pop-ups. Like, because a lot of people they get turned off with drinking usucha just because let's say they try drinking their latte grade matcha on its own, and of course it's gonna be astringent. Of course it's gonna be bitter. There won't be sweetness there sometimes. So they get really turned off. They'd be like, "No, I don't like drinking it on its own. This one tastes great. That's why I like mixing it with milk and sugar." So I always tell them to like don't let that stop you. Like for sure, there is something that you will try that will change your mind. So that's what I do. Like I when I do pop-ups, I actually bring different kinds of matcha for Osucha. And then I ask them for their preference. I let them smell it. I kind of let them like, play around with the tin, see what they like to try. So sometimes they ask me what the flavor notes are, so at least it doesn't come as a shock. So that's how I try to encourage people to order something they've never really tried before. Because most of the people here would really gear towards the lattes. So
I
yeah,
think in most of the world too. Even Jev was saying at MTCH, it's like 70% of their business is still mixed drinks.
yeah, yeah.
So I think that's just where most consumers are at, which is good. It's a good thing. Everyone has
Yeah,
to
it's a
start
good
somewhere.
yeah. Because the coffee industry also started that way. Like I would always say, like, don't be discouraged because a lot of us started with like a really sweet vanilla latte before we transitioned to like being able to drink like an Americano on its own. So it's
So
really like a
true.
journey.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
even the specialty coffee scene. Zongjun and I took our first trip to Manila in the Philippines in 2018. And we were
yeah,
trying to find cafes to work out of, specialty coffee. We were like really into that. And we found one really good one in Makati. And maybe there were others, but we had trouble finding them. And then we were just back 2 years ago, like boom, wow, everywhere.
crazy.
Like the speed of that in the past 4 years, like,
Yeah.
and it's crazy. Same in China, same in even Bangkok. Like a
Mhm.
lot of these places, just the specialty coffee scene has gone from niche to pretty mainstream. And I
Yes.
bet the curve on matcha, I hope it looks the same.
I know. I really hope it goes the same for matcha. It might take like a year or 2 years, but definitely I feel like the boom is gonna happen. Or it's happening. So yeah, but I understand about the specialty matcha. It's crazy. Like before, we will only get to visit one or two cafes that we would like, and then now wherever we go, may it be let's say Quezon City or Pasig or Makati, we'll always find a specialty coffee shop. It's not so hard to find anymore. So yeah, so when you
Absolutely.
guys come back, there's so many things to try. Like
Can't wait.
yeah,
What does the current landscape look like?
for
Are
matcha
they
or for
larger? Yeah,
coffee.
for matcha cafe. No, for matcha.
Well, right now, there's a lot of brands that are coming up. Some of them are like actual spaces, meaning they have like a cafe. So a lot of it have been opening in Manila. Like in one street alone, let's say I know in Quezon City, two have opened in the past few months. And then I would see also places in Davao, so that's like a province. Davao and Pampanga, in Cebu, they would open up specialty matcha places.
Hmm.
So there's a handful already who have physical spaces. Then there's a lot more of people selling matcha under their own brand. So now, like when I started posting on my Instagram, like I feel like I discover a lot of them more, like because they either like show up on my explore page or something, or like their ads pop up in my feed. Like just this week, I think I saw three people who launched their own matcha brands in the recent months. So those people don't really have their own space yet. So what they do is they sell their matcha either via e-commerce or in Manila, bazaars are a big thing. So these are Christmas bazaars where you sell like small businesses can sell their merchandise. So there are a few brands who also show up there. And then some do consignment. So there's a lot of deli shops here. Let's say groceries, high-end groceries. They would have matcha now from local brands. So it's like private labeled stuff. But yeah, it's
Interesting.
it's really growing really, really fast. Even with people who own coffee shops, like my husband and his siblings, they also see the growth of people ordering matcha. So at first, what I noticed with specialty coffee shops is that they don't really invest in their matcha lineup that much. So there are still specialty coffee shops in Manila that just serve matcha to kind of like satisfy the market a little bit, but it doesn't mean that they have the same level as like same quality as their coffee. It's just like
Mm.
satisfy the crowd, right? There are still a few of those, but so many people are now realizing that, hey, we need to like take it seriously. We really have to have a proper matcha menu because so many people order them already or like look for it. Like, yeah, even here in Subic, it all started as like matcha lattes only. So when we tried serving usucha or like having guest matcha and serving usucha, not a lot of people were interested. But when we kind of introduce a menu that's not just a simple matcha latte, people were really interested in trying and they would order and try different things. So I feel like okay, it's really like coffee. They want variety now. They're not just satisfied with just a vanilla, or not vanilla latte, but they're not just satisfied with like a matcha latte. They're willing to explore and try different things. So yeah, now I'm seeing a lot of coffee shops investing in their matcha, and they're sometimes realizing that they now serve more matcha sometimes than coffee. At least I have a client
Crazy.
that's like that. They started as a coffee shop. I have two clients. I have two clients that they started as a coffee shop, solely coffee. And then eventually people were looking for matcha. They started serving matcha. And then now they tell me that's their top selling drink. It's not the coffee anymore. So I'm like, okay, okay, that's good to
Nice.
hear. I mean, that's really good to hear because you'll see the growth. But also from a consumer's perspective, I feel like a lot of people prefer making their matcha at home just because I feel like they're not as satisfied with the ratios that certain places offer. So even if they're like a matcha centric cafe or a specialty coffee shop, I feel like most of the matchas are not as potent or as strong as like home brewers would like it to be. And that includes me.
Makes
Like I
sense.
really like my matcha strong. I don't want to just drink like a milky drink.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to enjoy the flavors of matcha and yet like a creamy milk based drink, right? So I think that's where all of these new establishments need to find the balance. Like they really should find the right ratio so that they can also capture the people who prefer drinks that are stronger and I guess more matcha flavor.
Or
So
just
yeah.
have the
Absolutely.
options, like have the diversity,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
VCH,
Or
capture everyone.
There's two cafes in the Philippines that offer additional doses, right? So if you want like an extra strong matcha, but only two people offer that for now. So imagine all the other cafes who already serve matcha, they don't have it on their menu yet. So I
Should be a
feel like
default.
they should, yeah.
be a default. They should do like a single espresso, double espresso kind of concept. I feel
Exactly.
like those
Because
Yeah.
would
now,
transition so well.
now you can order an extra shot. You can do as many as four shots in your drink. So I feel like you can do that with matcha too for people who just want to enjoy one but really strong drink.
What are the standard doses that you see? Like, what are the ranges of recipes? And then how have you formulated all of your drinks? And like, how do you think about dosing or whisking ratios and all of that?
Yeah. Because for now, a lot of the cafes that I know would usually use 2 grams for a 12-ounce drink. Like I think some cafes even do like 2 grams or 3 grams for a 16-ounce drink, and I find that too little. And to be honest, I feel like it's because that's what's available on the internet also. Like when you look for matcha recipes, it would be like an sucha recipe that would pop up. Like 2 grams of matcha is considered one serving. So I feel like they just take that information and like run. So yeah, so even my friends who started drinking matcha, they would always ask me like, "Hey, mine kind of tastes bland or doesn't taste as good." And then I ask them about their ratios, and it's always just at 2 grams. So with the recipes that I use for the pop-ups, it really is from my personal preference or my husband. Because we're the only like we he's the only one who gets to try my drinks before I serve them to the public.
Yeah,
So if
lucky
it
guy.
doesn't pass, yeah, if it doesn't pass his standards, like we won't do it. And yeah, I make sure that it's my personal preference because I also am not confident to serve something that I don't like myself. So during that time when I was developing the recipe, I would start at 4 grams for a 12-ounce cup. So I would do 4 grams. At first, I think I started at five, and then it was too strong. So we did four, at least for the matcha that I'm currently using. And then, yeah, I just make sure that it would fit like a 12-ounce cup. But a lot of people are now asking for a bigger size. But my concern is if you go bigger, you add more matcha. So to me, that's like around 6 grams for a 16-ounce cup or more even. And that would, of course, increase the costs. Because,
A lot
like,
of
sorry, I'm
caffeine too.
yeah, a lot of caffeine. So I always tell them that when I serve you 4 grams of matcha, consider that as like a double shot already. Because it's like you drinking two cups of usucha, and it can get really intense. And then if I serve like a 6 gram latte, that's like triple shot. And it's gonna keep you up for a while because it doesn't have like that curve, right? You don't crash. You're just like awake and focused the whole time. So that's what I do. Because yeah, a lot of the things that I hear is that they don't like the flavors just because they don't taste the matcha. Like most of the time, the milk overpowers it just because the ratio's off or like they don't use the right milk. So, oh, that's one of the things that I also learned when I was doing all of these pop-ups is that I tried different milks. And sometimes I realized that when the fat content of the milk is too high, it really just covers everything. You won't taste the matcha at all, even if you put 6 grams. So it will just taste like milk. So there's a lot of experimentation, but I feel like I didn't really deep dive yet. Like it was just me experimenting, and then I found something that worked, and then that's what I served. Like I
Nice.
kind of got lucky.
How do you do the base? Do you hot whisk? How do you do the ratio for the actual whisking base? Like
Oh,
what's
okay.
the do you have a
For the
standard recipe?
whisking, yes, yes. So what I do is like I always mix it with 50 grams of water. So 4 grams of matcha to 50 grams of water, and then I always do 75 degrees Celsius. Some cafes offer like cold whisking method, but to me, I really don't believe in it because I feel like I need to introduce heat so that I can bring out all the flavors of the matcha, or else again it'll disappear in the milk. Then Filipinos like things sweet. So my sweetener is roughly like at 20 grams. Some people ask for more. So that's, let's say, just a simple syrup or like a flavored syrup. I'll do like 20, 25, depending on the customer. And then I'll fill up the rest with milk. But my milk would usually just be 110 to 120 grams.
Wow, it's a
Yeah.
very concentrated beverage.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And then what I realize or what I see during my pop-ups is that they really, really appreciate the fact that they can see how green it is. And then when they drink it, they can really taste the matcha. So even if we do like flavored matcha lattes, they can still taste it without it being overpowering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think MTCH uses similar ratios. It's like they're very concentrated beverages and you really taste it.
And also one of the things that I do is that when I usually serve two kinds of matcha. I always have two kinds of matcha powders with me when I do my pop-ups. So one is a stone milled matcha that I use for plain matcha lattes. So that when people ask for a matcha latte with or without sugar, I know that they'll enjoy the flavors. And then I get that my second matcha, which I use for all my flavored drinks, is a ball milled matcha. And then that one's a little more bitter. There's a little more boldness to it because I feel like I need that kind of matcha so that it will translate to my flavored drinks and it won't get lost. So that's one of the things that I do. I don't use just one matcha for all the drinks. And to
That's
think if
awesome.
I had the space, if I had the time, I would probably have different kinds of matcha per drink. Yeah, but like right now, like I only do the pop-ups with my husband or with my sister-in-law. We're like three people max, and that's like not enough hands.
Well, it's way better than what most people do. I mean, even having two, it's that's a rare sight for a cafe program too.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I know.
What do you spend like so we're developing matcha equipment and trying to optimize workflows. Like where do you spend the most time in the preparation step? Like if there's anything that could be automated away or something that we could design certain features for to solve problems, like where would be the low-hanging fruit as you see it?
I think the one that takes the most time is sifting the matcha and whisking it. Like, to me, I've tried pre-sifting my matcha before a pop-up, but let's say sifting 500 grams of matcha the day before is like too stressful for me. And then only to find out that the next day they're gonna get a little clumpy. So
Yeah.
I shifted from pre-sifting my matcha to just
Yeah,
sifting
they
it on the
reclump.
spot, and that takes time. For me, that takes time. Even if I received sift from, is it Niseko, the one from Malaysia? It's a brand from Malaysia. So their sift is slightly bigger than the usual sift. So that one helped in a sense that when I put like 4 or 8 grams of matcha in it, it won't like explode when I try to sift it. So yeah, that's one thing. I feel like sifting takes a lot of time. And then the whisking, just because there are times that I would whisk 1 or 2 servings in one bowl. And it kind of takes a while for me to get all the matcha incorporated with the water. So, yeah, but everything else, let's say putting the syrups and the milks and the ice, like my husband, and like he has a system for it. It's really smooth. But then I feel like sometimes he does more than I do, but it takes time just because I have those like little roadblocks. So yeah, it would be the sifting and the whisking, I think.
The dosing too, I've found, even in like my own preparation, like the dealing with dry matcha powder is so like
Yes,
so messy.
it's
And
so
the
messy.
so messy. It's hard to weigh, it gets everywhere, you can't have any water near it. Like it's the yeah.
And like I would notice that if a certain place where I do my pop-ups is kind of humid, it makes it worse. Like I
Oh,
feel like my matcha sticks to all my utensils when the place is humid. So that's one
Uh-huh.
thing also. So sometimes when I'm doing my setup, I'd be like, oh, it's a little humid in this place. I feel like I should, you know, clean my utensils once in a while, or else it's all like super green because it clings to it. Because I'll
Interesting.
notice it.
That's good to know.
It's humid here, but there are some spaces when it's indoors that it's extra humid. So the matcha powder gets really, really like staticky and would like stick to all my stuff.
hmm.
And you're right, dosing. Another one is the scale. Because I use a scale. I think it's Timemore. So I have two. The other one is a newer version, and I didn't realize that it doesn't. It it's not as accurate as it gets older. Does that make sense? I feel like when I
Interesting. It like
dose,
drifts.
yeah, it drifts. Like when I use my new way, my new scale, it's more accurate. I'd be like, oh, when I use my old scale, I would need to do like 2 scoops. So how long have I been dosing it wrong?
Oh,
Like I would have those thoughts. So I would have those thoughts because sometimes like the slightest difference also matter, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
totally does.
so
yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
guess
half a gram is huge when you're talking about matcha.
exactly. So yeah, I guess all of those things before you pour out the matcha, it's the dosing, the sifting, and the whisking,
Hmm.
which kind of means all.
Yeah, the whole process.
The whole process of like handling matcha. That's the hardest part. But yeah.
We can definitely relate to all those problems. And we're not even pop-up operators. It's just in our like testing.
How future products can ease some headaches.
Yes. It would be really, really helpful. And you're right. Like, I've seen your bowl, but I don't have it yet. So I'm gonna get one soon.
Oh, we'll send one to you. We'll send one
Yeah,
to you.
Oh, thank you.
That's our pleasure.
Because I really like the idea that you streamlined it for coffee shop use. Because they're already like using like traditional tools, but like it's not as efficient. And I really appreciate like as simple as like a katakuchi or like a spouted bowl is already super helpful. So yeah, I look forward to more products that you guys will develop that will definitely help in like serving matcha in a commercial way.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's our goal.
Yeah, even the mills, right? Like my goal is to have a mill here in the Philippines, but I feel like an Uzu is too big an investment to have here.
Mm.
And when I heard Jev's interview with you guys and he said he doesn't want to do it again, I'm
Yeah,
like,
he
oh
was like
no,
a similar thought. I was like, oh wow, interesting.
right? Like, because I got inspired by Mark in Oika. He started with two and then he now has four mills. And I'm like, dude, how does he get to do it? He's so far from Japan. What if something breaks? Like,
Yeah,
who will
crazy.
fix it? And it's not cheap. So my goal was to like eventually have one in the Philippines, but then oh no, what about like the after sales care? What about like if something happens to it? I wouldn't know how to deal with it yet. So it might be too much. So I look forward to your mill, like, and I hope like you get to launch it soon.
Timelines just keep getting delayed and delayed, but hopefully by end of January, beginning of February-ish, we
Nice.
will have something mechanically that we are finally happy with.
That's
Is it
exciting.
really
That's not too
difficult?
far.
Not too far, if it all works. It's mechanically so different than a coffee grinder because
Yeah.
you have so much pressure and just even like the motor requirements and this type of thing. It's
And
just we
how
have
Mhm.
to
to keep
transmit the
re-engineering.
power.
The belt comes off, something breaks. It's like so it's a
Yeah,
lot of iteration.
Yeah. I can just imagine. I can just imagine.
it's part
And
of
we
the
know it
fun.
needs to really last. Part of the
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
It'll all be worth it. It's like it's crazy. It'll all be worth it when it's finally out and people are actually using it already.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a very exciting day.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just to wrap up, one last question. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the brand you were launching and like when it is and what it is and whatever information you can share about it.
Yeah, sure. So the brand that we're launching is actually called Kamai. So Kamai is spelled as Kamai. So it was derived from the word kamaimas from Japan, which means care. And then when it's in Filipino, kamay means hand.
Cool.
So
Okay.
That's
yeah,
yeah.
so we wanted to it was like a way for us to show the care that goes into your tea from like harvesting from Japan to like serving it to you as a guest. So we wanted to incorporate that. My goal for this is to have I have three phases for it. So the first phase will be like an e-commerce site. So it'll start with the created matcha first from different well-known brands from Japan. And then eventually I will be launching my own brand of matcha. And
Cool.
then after that is to help share really good matcha to other cafes too. So eventually supplying to these cafes like B2B. And my third phase, which I'm most nervous about, is to have our own space. Yeah. My
So cool.
vision for it is that it'll be like a slow bar so people can come in, enjoy their time for themselves or with their friends. It won't be as rushed as other cafes. And yeah, ideally, we get to serve matcha to everyone who doesn't matter what their background is, doesn't matter what their exposure to matcha is or Japanese teas in general. Because we don't want to just focus on matcha actually. We wanted to serve Japanese teas, other Japanese teas as well. Because I guess a part of the learning is that when we traveled to Japan and did all of these farm tours, we were also able to try other Japanese teas that kind of blew our minds. So we wanted that same experience for other people too. So yeah, I'm a
That's
little
awesome.
nervous because this is like, no kidding, 3 years in the making. Kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. But yeah, 2025 is the year, so we're hopefully launching it soon.
That's
Woot.
awesome. I love
Yeah,
the concept of a slow bar. This is
yeah,
it's very exciting because it's it's one step less commitment than a tea ceremony, but like
yes.
one step more focused than just quick grab and go. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
the perfect meet in the middle of this kind of pour over reflection moment. You're like, there's some waiting, there's some dialogue. Like
Yeah.
I love this concept.
Yeah, because I really wanted to have people experience a tea ceremony without having to step into a tatami room. It's a little more relaxed in that sense, but you have all the principles of the Chado practice there, like the tranquility, purity, respect. So I wanted them all to feel that when they enter the space. And yeah, so I'm really excited.
Love the
Very
concept,
top.
and good luck as
Yeah.
you launch through each of those phases. And
Yeah.
we can't wait to try it in each phase.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. And I really hope that when you visit the Philippines, we'll get to see each other. And hopefully
For sure.
that space has been launched so I can invite you over.
Oh, it'd be
We're
awesome.
definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. I think that's all we have time for. So if you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend or giving us 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening to. It really helps us and like other people discovering this podcast too. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the future. Take care.
See
Thanks.
you. Thank you.